There we go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, welcome, Chris Lee and Maria from Bay State Community Services. We are thrilled to have you here with us at Simmons. We call it our careers employer chat. And we are always welcoming and eager to hear what social work looks like at your organization in the many forms that it may take. So I know that students received your bios, so we would love to just have you introduce yourselves individually, talk a bit about why you chose Bay State and how your career trajectories went. And then from there, if you would just, walk us through a day in a life, so to speak, of social work at your organization in any form that makes sense to speak about, and then to open it up for dialogue with our students who are here. So we're really trying to expose students to all the possibilities and to also get a sense of interdisciplinary professional work as well. So thank you for coming in for us today, and sorry for the delay. So with that, we'll have Chris Lee or Maria, who's on first?
I'll go first, I don't mind. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for having us join this virtual chat. We're very excited to be here and to be meeting with you all. So I am Christy Calix. I go by Chris as well. I am the Director of Talent Acquisition for Bay State Community Services. I started with Bay State 2 years ago now, and it was one of the best decisions that I've ever made. Of course, I was one of the lost souls during the pandemic. I did experience the layoff at that time that prompted my job search. And instantly after seeing the job posting for the Director of Talent Acquisitions role for Bay State, I thought, what a great opportunity, what a great organization. So I'm happy that I applied. Bay State, of course, does tremendous work for our local communities. We do a lot of children and family services. We have a lot of recovery support as well as prevention services. We do focus on a strong continuum of care, which we'll probably further go over that during our presentation today. But again, it's a great organization to work for, and I'm happy to be here at Bay State Community Services.
And we're happy to have you, Chris Lee. I'm Maria Malpignano. My official title is Senior Vice President of Residential and Prevention Services here at Bay State. I am an LICSW, and I've been in the field doing this work for over 20 years. I've been at Bay State since 2006. Started off after graduating with my MSW at a residential substance use treatment facility for adolescents. I did direct care with the kids and families, was promoted to clinical director. Then I moved on to Bay State, where I was the program director of their stabilization, treatment, assessment, and rapid reintegration program, which is was a residential program for adolescents as well through a contract with the Department of Children and Families. I was in that position for about 8 years before coming into this vice president role, where I started off overseeing the residential programs for Bay State. So there are 4 group homes that we contract with the state around. 3 are through the Department of Children and Families. 1 is through the Department of Mental Health. And most recently, I've been promoted to overseeing our prevention services as well. That's brand new to me. That's kind of the macro end of social work, which was something I was very interested in when I was in school. So I'm excited to get back into sort of that mindset, but I will be honest, that is brand spanking new to me. And so I'm kind of trying to, wake up those classes that I took in grad school and trying to kind of dive right into a brand new territory.
Terrific. And Stephanie, you jump in. I don't have to do this. So, but we do this in partnership clearly, and I know that you've spoken with Stephanie the most so far. So I welcome her voice in this. Yeah, so thank you for your intros. And so tell us, Alyssa, I get this, the why stay, and congratulations on the movement. And that's half the questions right there is what's that ladder? Is there a ladder look like, right? And so nice to hear that has been there for you. Talk about a little bit, so who we have today, at least two, I believe, are MSW students. We do open this up to the college widely, and so we could have a BSW just in case you have positions that may be more tailored for that role. But based on who we have today, tell us what you would be looking, what they could potentially, your corporate hub is where, location-wise, you talk about the scope and breadth of where your services are, and what would you look for early career MSWs to do? What role would be the most appropriate?
So I think I'm trying to think what makes more sense for Chrisley to start with sort of the more global understanding of the agency, because we do cover a very vast area, and then I can speak more specifically to my program.
Good.
And some of the roles that MSWs have had within the programs that I oversee.
Yeah, good gameplay, Maria. Thank you. So basic community services, we have about 85 programs in 17 different locations, primarily spanning from all the way up north in Woburn to now down south in New Bedford. Again, to recap, we have in-home therapy programs, we have outpatient clinics, we have recovery support centers, our 4 residential services program, which Maria will go into a little bit more in depth, 2 family resource centers, as well as a therapeutic after school program. For career pathways, career ladders, we take in everyone from individuals with lived experience, volunteers, peers, interns, and then for employment, of course, we look for just about the same things. We have lived experience, professional experience, starting off in an entry-level position. That might be our youth advocate roles or day treatment counselor roles. And then from there, after gaining experience, more technical skills, even at most times, continued education, we'll see those staff members continue their careers and be promoted to care coordinators, therapeutic support specialists, therapeutic mentors, which would allow them to gain a little bit more experience in the communities, working one-on-one with youth that need further development in coaching around life skills, soft skills, and coping skills. And then, of course, for our master's level clinicians, we do have a breadth of career opportunities available to our clinicians here, from working in our in-home therapy programs. Our residential clinicians are a great asset to our youth that stay in our residences, as well as working in our outpatient clinic as well. There's a lot to do here. There's a lot to learn here. And more importantly, there's a lot of room for growth and development here. And I'll pass it over to Maria.
Thank you, Chrisley. So I can speak a little more to our residential services and some of the positions that we would be recruiting for under kind of my purview. So as far as bachelor's level folks, BSW in particular, there are 2, I think, strong points of entry for folks who are coming in with a bachelor's degree. One would be our youth advocate, which I believe Chrisley had mentioned a couple minutes ago. That position is some direct care work with the youth and families that we serve. It is a phenomenal experience for someone who is really interested in the clinical pieces of social work. There's a lot of interaction one-on-one with the kids, a lot of in-the-moment crisis intervention. You know, one of the nicest kind of stories I can tell you is, you know, I've had several of my staff who came in as youth advocates who, you know, then go on to getting a master's degree. And I've had a few who've gone into getting an MSW program who have said to me that their MSW program was very easy for them because of the great experiences they had had, you know, working on the floor, learning about diagnoses and the clinical needs of kids and families. And, you know, they felt very prepared for their programs. And, you know, in some ways, almost confused as to why others, you know, struggled in certain areas because they had had such great experiences with the work that they've done directly with the kids and families that we serve. The other positions that I think would be appropriate for a BSW grad would be kind of new to our residential programs. We have been recently trying to recruit for case managers. So that role, you know, again, is new to my programs, but is sort of the, you know, in my programs, they would be sitting with the master's level clinician. So there would be a lot of interaction and contact with the master's level person. It would be a little less direct with the kiddos. The youth advocate spends their entire shift, their entire work day with the kids directly. The clinical case, or I'm sorry, the case manager would be, you know, setting up interviews, participating in meetings. Certainly there would definitely be interaction with the kids. One of the things that I think is the strong point of my programs is that we are small group homes, and the clinical staff and the administrative staff are in the same house and space as the kids and the floor staff. So we don't have a campus setting. We don't have clinicians in a whole other building. They're very much part of our milieu, which is why I think that youth advocate role gets so much exposure to, you know, that clinical perspective, and that work that we're doing with the kids directly is very much guided by that master's level person, which again leads me to the master's level person. So we have one master's level clinician at each of my sites. They're responsible for the assessment work. They are responsible for treatment planning. Part of their role in my setting is to help our floor staff who aren't master's level folks really understand the clinical needs of the kids, and helps to guide the treatment that happens in our milieu. So there's a kind of teaching component almost to our master's level folks. Crisis intervention, you know, we have up to 9 or 12 adolescents living in the same space, so you can imagine. There's lots of crisis intervention that we do on a daily basis. There's lots of opportunity to build therapeutic rapport with the kids, interactions with family members, collaterals. You know, one of the things I tell folks that come either to intern with me or to work for me is, if you are interested in understanding mental health, you'll see pretty much any diagnosis you can think of come through the door. And so it really kind of gives folks a nice opportunity to really understand mental health in a way that I think is richer and much more comprehensive than, you know, a 1-hour session with someone. Because we live with the kids. We know what they're doing 24/7. We know if they're having a tough night sleeping. We can make those connections to their trauma. We work very closely with a board certified child psychiatrist who supports the program as well. So there's just, you know, lots of great opportunities. When I said collaterals earlier, you know, we certainly work with state caseworkers, whether it's the Department of Mental Health, the Department of Children and Families. We deal with other collateral providers that might be involved with the family. So we interface with schools on a very regular basis. We interface with probation and the courts on a fairly regular basis. as well as other supportive services that have been put in place for the families, such as in-home therapy teams, individual therapists, mentors. So really, it is a nice way to kind of get to know the system as well, and to kind of see the different opportunities that are out there for supporting, a population that's really in need.
No, that's great. It's a wide range, and it's really good foundational learning for sure. Remind me again. So the age district, the school district age is K through 12, but it could be what age groups are you really seeing?
So sure. So my programs specifically work with youth between the age. So 2 of my programs are emergency residences. So that is kind of what we describe as the emergency room for the Department of Children and Families. So if a youth has disrupted from whatever their placement is, or more often than not these days, we are seeing a lot of kids who have recently needed an inpatient hospital stay due to either suicidality or really kind of dysregulated, unsafe behaviors. Their home situation has disrupted, whether it's been a foster home or, their biological home, feeling like they can't kind of handle some of the behaviors, some of the mental health that they've most recently seen. We get those referrals. If we have a bed, those kids come to our program, where we further assess and support them, try to kind of figure out things that are helpful to them, and help them kind of move on to their next setting. Those kids are typically between the ages of 12 through 18. And all of those kids are in some way, shape, or form involved with the Department of Children and Families. And what I also like to say to anybody who is interested in doing this work, especially in our residential group home department, all of the kids that I work with have a history of trauma. It's just kind of part of what they've been through. And so all of the work we do is through a trauma-informed lens. That's the perspective that we take when we do any of this work with the kids. So I did want to mention that, but ages 12 through 18. And I do oversee another program. It's a community treatment residence. The names change with the contract, so it always takes me a minute to remember what it is. So in our community treatment residence, we actually work with kids who are a little bit older. We work with a 15 through 20-year-old range. And really, these are the kids who have typically spent a good portion of their lives in and out of some sort of foster care. They are kiddos who don't have a family to be living with. Typically, they're kids who have disrupted from several foster home placements. And so our work with them is to really think about their permanency and trying to kind of help support them in identifying positive adults in their world, in their life, whether it's, biological connections or not, just those folks that can be in their corner. We also work with them on independent living skills. So we are really supportive of them completing some sort of school program, whether it's, traditional school or GED. We also really work hard to get the kids to have a job and be able to maintain a job, so that we can start looking at, money management and the different things that they need to support them in an independent living situation. But remember, these kids are all DCF involved as well. So there is a pretty significant trauma and mental health component to their presentation. And so, our master's level clinician there helps to support that, helps to make connections with outpatient providers that they can carry on with after their stay with us. So those kids, as I said, are a little bit older. They typically transition from us sometimes into college, into their own bachelor's program. Sometimes they move on to living with roommates. And sometimes they do go into other DCF funded programs. And then I have a program in Quincy That program is contracted with the Department of Mental Health. That program, our kids, I believe, between the ages of 13 and 18, although we do on occasion get kids, beyond their 18th birthday, usually up to 19. And those kids are kids who are involved with the Department of Mental Health. They typically do have family involvement in some way, shape, or form. DMH does not have custodial or custody of those youth. And so a lot of what we're trying to do there is, again, assessment work, trying to have a better understanding of what's going on for each of the kids and families, and helping to support the family and supporting their youth, and helping the youth develop coping skills to manage their life. That is a very short-term program. The kids are typically there for 30 days or so.
Wow. So there's a lot of opportunity. Well, I mean, you did say 85 programs, so there's a lot of opportunity that stretch, that easily stretch across the kind of degrees that we have at our School of Social Work. What I didn't say is, you're an organization like yourself. We have a, from BSW to now DSW, range of possibilities and a PhD in between, right? So, however, the MSWs who will be coming out in May, this is a great opportunity for them as well, right? To get this kind of exposure to, for those who are children, youth, and family. We have certificates, and we have a licensure program. And so this could be an organization that would be suitable even for, we have something called the MSW and a school adjustment counselor licensure, where they get, licensed with DESE and they get the MSW path, that whole thing. And so there's a lot of elements to this organization that would be a nice fit for that, for those coming out with that as well. I want to make sure that we give time for those who are here to have this captive audience from the state to ask questions. So please feel free at any point, just you can turn your screen off if you can't, turn it on if you can. If not, just ask your question about the organization. Before we go into some of the benefits that we would like to hear more about as well. Sure. Questions? Any school licensure folks if anyone can give a nod or.
Hi, I have a quick question. Are there any opportunities for nursing students who will graduate with a bachelor's nursing degree?
Good question. Thank you for that, Jasmine. At this point in time, yes, it wouldn't be working in sort of like a nursing capacity, whether that's like a CNA or, like bedside type of capacity. But again, as Maria had previously stated, we, from time to time do have nursing school graduates work in the residential program. I have heard from those graduates that they find the work in residential fulfilling, and the fact that depending upon the program, they are getting a chance to administer meds. We do participate in the MAP sort of program throughout the state, which is the medication administration program. So that's directly correlated to nursing there. The flexibility in hours are also great for nursing grads, especially if they're looking to go into like an MSN program. So they can use that flexibility for their continued studies as well. There's other programs that we have nursing graduates work in, but again, it wouldn't be like that sort of bedside nursing. It would be in a different capacity, working with families and youth in their communities or in their homes.
Well, you slipped right in on us, Jasmine. I'm from nursing, so was not expecting that, but glad you're here and glad that, Crystal, you were able to make those connections so quickly. I appreciate that. So any other question? I hope that answered your questions, Jasmine, because there is a lot of crossover for sure. Emma, Amy, any specific questions that you might have, that or just comments that made you want to hear more about Bay State today?
I have kind of a broad question, and I'm trying to think of how to articulate it. Maybe if you had one. I'm curious, I'm particularly maybe interested in like outpatient therapy, which it looks like is a part of your family therapy, things like that. But difference between, being an outpatient therapist at Bay State or any sort of role, maybe versus like another organization. I know there's a lot of different agencies out there. Culture is a part of it, advancement is a part of it. Just kind of curious if you have any thoughts.
Who wants to take it? So the Chris Lee.
Yes, sorry about that. And I apologize, Emma. I think maybe my volume on my computer was a little bit lower, or maybe the mic that you were using was a little bit faint, so I couldn't hear you all the way. I believe your question was pertaining to our outpatient clinic and how it might be similar or contrast from other outpatient clinics. Is that correct? Or
Yeah, sorry, I'll be louder. My computer. Yeah, any experience of someone working in that clinic versus maybe another clinic.
Okay, so yeah, so what maybe Maria can help me in this regard. I know.
Chrisley, if you heard that, I'm so sorry. For the reason I'm like not saying anything is because I could not hear her question at all.
Yeah, so Emma was asking if we could, detail for her the differences between working in an outpatient clinic versus another setting as being a therapist.
Okay, yeah, no, I can definitely answer that question. Thank you. And thank you, Chrisley, because I heard outpatient clinic and then it went faint and I was turning up the volume and couldn't get it. Yeah, so I will say, I think that, and I'm going to kind of speak from my direct experience and probably the experience of a lot of the master's level folks that have come to work with me over the course of almost 20 years or over 20 years now. I would say that I'm going to kind of answer the question a little anecdotally. When I had graduated with my MSW, I, of course, was looking for a job. And, there was that sort of outpatient opportunity. And then there was the opportunity in residential, which is the one I ended up choosing. I'll tell you why I made that choice for myself. In some of these settings, in residential in particular, which I have always appreciated, there is no outpatient billing and there's no productivity requirements. And what that did for me was give me the opportunity to really focus on honing in on my skills without worrying about making sure I had, everything kind of buttoned up within a 45-minute session. It also allowed me the opportunity, like I said earlier, to really understand our clients in a way that I have not experienced in any other setting. I've done outpatient work, kind of on the side. And there really is this richness to being in an environment that has a multidisciplinary team, where you can make those connections that, they're not always evident in other settings, especially in an outpatient setting where you are just kind of, working with and responding to what your client kind of brings to the table. And everybody who I have supervised has made statements around how, they don't understand why this outpatient clinician doesn't understand that this kid is struggling with, XYZ. And, what I typically say to them is, you've worked here. So this kiddo has been here for 2 weeks. You've been with this same patient for 40 hours plus 40 hours, 80 hours. This outpatient clinician has worked with this kid for a year, maybe once a week, if they were consistent, probably for about an hour. And I'm sure there have been vacations and things like that. So just in terms of, the simple math, in your outpatient setting, having worked with a kid for a year, you maybe have had 40 hours with them total. Whereas you've captured 40 hours of their time in, 2 weeks. So we do get to know things on a more intense level, which I think does, help if outpatient work is something that you're interested in doing kind of later on in your career. It really kind of gives some insight to that. Outpatient work is typically, you have productivity requirements. A lot of it is driven by insurance and what your insurance will cover and what your insurance will pay for. In our clinic, I believe, I could be wrong on this because I might not be totally up to date, but I believe, the productivity requirements are typically about 26, I think, or 24 or 26 hours per week, which seems like it's very doable, but I certainly have overseen our MSW folks in supervision, because I do support whoever, is an MSW in our agency and do the direct supervision for a lot of those folks. And I think especially with social work, it's a struggle because in our perspective, we're really trying to understand our clients in so many domains, and we want to make those community connections with them, and we want to understand them as a person in their environment. And I will tell you the feedback I get from the MSW folks that go right into our outpatient clinic is that they struggle because they feel very limited with the time that they have with clients and with sort of what they're actually going to be paid to do. So a lot of them, struggle with the boundary of, doing all this kind of other work that they're not actually being paid for. Whereas in residential, it's all part of it, right? Like one of the things that we are really trying to focus on is the person in their system, in their social environment, not only their diagnoses and the clinical pieces. So I don't know if that totally answered your question. I can speak a little bit to our IHT services as well. So as far as the IHT folks, our master's level clinicians that do home-based work, again, that was one of my internships when I did my MSW program. And what I can tell you, even in that setting, is the diagnostic information that you get when you walk into a person's home and understand where they live, the community that they live in, the circumstances in which they live, how they interact with other members of their family. It speaks volumes in ways that I have never found as comprehensive in sort of that outpatient setting. And again, I've done outpatient work. It's good work, like it's necessary. But I think if you're talking, and maybe if you're talking about the true nature of social work, I think you'll find more of those components in other settings. But certainly that clinical piece of social work is there for your outpatient work. You're on mute, Sandra.
I'm just babbling away. I'm saying I think that was a great picture of the differences, because I'm now understanding. Emma's question even more. What's the difference between traditional outpatient and being in a setting that isn't billable, where it's all part of a comprehensive package. And so I think of doing the work, and so I think that was a great way to get to that understanding. So yeah, the nature of being in your residential or in home, you're really getting to see the full picture of the client and their family. So that's wonderful. What about, and you touched a little bit on it, but I think it's helpful for folks here to understand, what does that journey look like for supervision? I guess maybe onboarding, if they were to take a position, from a master level position, what does onboarding look like? When does a person start to feel like, okay, I have my routine in whichever program, and then what does that supervision and support look like ongoing?
Sure. So Chrisley, I'll kind of let you talk about the onboarding process. and then I will pick up on the supervision piece of it.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, Maria. So with the hiring process in general at Bay State Community Services, it always starts off with a application or a resume submission to our recruitment inbox, which is recruitment@baystatecs.org. With the application, myself or one of my recruiters will reach out to you to do a initial phone screening. We'll get a chance to check on your background, your skills, are you, authorized to work in the United States, of the age of 21 years old or more. Those sort of key requisites that really determine if you can actually work with us. From then on, I would pass on your screening materials as well as your application to a hiring manager like Maria or other program directors within the organization to review, and then follow up with you to schedule an interview. The interview process here at Bay State on average is a two-step interview process. You'll get a chance to connect with the program director, will tell you a little bit more about their program, what their expectations for the roles that they have open. Then later, if accepted, be moved forward to the second interview, which would be with another team member or other staff within the program to do sort of a peer meet and greet and get a chance to see if you guys gel that way. At the completion of both interviews, a decision will be made to which, the recruitment team or hiring manager will follow up with you directly to offer you the position. Before you can start working with us, we do have you undergo a reference check, background check, which would include Corey and Soaring. For Maria's programs, residential services, Maria, I see her smiling because this is her favorite part. There's additional background checks that we take. So we do the Adam Walsh check, and we also do fingerprinting and a driver's record check to work in residential. Of course, all of these things are very important. As we work very closely with EEC, we work very closely with our communities and the youth that are placed in our homes. So we take it very seriously, looking at the background checks, making sure that, new hires are, secure and equipped to perform professionally and safely within the program. Once all of the checks are cleared, we'll reach out to the new hire and schedule them for new hire orientation. At Bay State Community Services, our new hire orientation is still virtual at this time. It's via Zoom. It happens every Monday. Granted that Monday is not a holiday. If it is, then orientation gets moved to the Tuesday. Orientation is typically from like 10 to 3, where we cover OSHA, HIPAA compliance, again, an overview of the organization, residential training and scheduling for that. And then the latter part of the orientation is reserved for self-guided training, which we do use Relias platform, which is provided to us by the Providers Council at this time. And then if you are assigned a clinical role with Maria, I know she'll take it over from here and she'll sort of tell you about her training process and scheduling for that, and meeting with her for individual supervision and group supervision.
Okay, so and I can speak to some of the other components of the agency as well, I think. So all of the programs would have some kind of that what Presley spoke to was the agency orientation. Then there would be an orientation to your specific program that you were hired for. Most of that would happen on site to the site that you have been hired to work in. Typically, there is, I'm gonna say probably at least a week of time where you would be closely connected to a supervisor or a coworker to show you, kind of the ins and outs of what the job might entail. And I know in some of our some of the programs that do work through, the productivity model where you have to have a certain amount of clients and work with clients throughout the week. That is, I believe, and I cannot give you details around it, but there's sort of a ramp up period. So you wouldn't be expected to hit that, 26-hour productivity mark right away. There would be sort of, the first, week would be maybe none. The second week would be, I don't know, some percentage of 26 until you get to that 26 mark. For my programs, which I can speak to a little bit more clearly, we, as I said, we don't do productivity. So a lot of it is, especially in your first couple weeks, observation, because we do want you to know what the kids' day-to-day life is like and, what things look like, getting to know the staff, feeling a part of that team. Certainly there'd be times that you would work directly with the program director or another clinician or another person in the sort of administrative role to kind of learn, some of the, paperwork and some of the systems pieces that we wouldn't expect anybody to walk into the job knowing. I do the supervision for the clinicians in my program. So I typically meet with folks once a week, regularly scheduled. I typically go to the site. So I do face-to-face, unless there's some COVID outbreak or I've been exposed, and then we do Zoom. So I do face-to-face supervision on site. I typically know the kids in my programs. So it is nice because I do have some insight to each of the individual kids and what's going on. And so it's not as removed as it is sometimes when I'm doing supervision for the other programs in the agency. So I would meet with the clinicians once a week, and then I do, right now it has been through Zoom. It used to be in person. It's so hard to figure out when it's going to be safe to be in person again, because you don't want to get everybody sick all at once, and that's always my anxiety. But we do a group supervision. So I meet with all of the master's level clinicians in my residential programs. So each of the 4 sites has someone representing their program, and we do kind of a group supervision, talking about what's going on in our caseload, struggles that we've had, and really kind of, I facilitate it, but I really do it like a group supervision. So other folks are helping each other based on kind of what they've been doing and what's been helpful to them. And then so Bay State is very committed to supervision. So we help each other out through the agency. I'm, an LICSW. There are LMHC or folks who are headed towards an LMHC under me. And so I will ask one of my colleagues to help support them in their supervision needs when I cannot, offer any more hours. And I offer my supports to other areas of the agency as well. So I have supervised, MSWs through our in-home team. I've supervised MSWs through our outpatient clinic, because there is that level of commitment, preferably, and if it's available, if there's a licensed social worker, an LICSW within the program that you're hired for, then that person would be your direct supervisor. But if that doesn't exist within the program that you're hired for, the agency is very committed to getting you the supervision hours that you need.
Great. Along that line, opportunity for professional development, CEUs, towards license or independent licensure as well.
Absolutely. So I will answer this, but Chrisley, you can pipe in. So the agency offers, I think it's at least 10 2-hour CEU trainings per year. Usually it's once a month. The list of topics will come out usually in August, September. And, as part of the leadership team, we really sit and think about what will be helpful for our staff in terms of offering those trainings. I'm usually the one that puts the big push out for trauma-informed care. So, we certainly try to do some trauma-informed care topics at least once a year. And so we kind of sit together and try to kind of figure out what the trends have been and try to get speakers or to coordinate trainings that are relevant to what we're dealing with in the moment.
Mhm. Great, great. Now I know we are at our time, but and I don't know if Emma and Amy have classes. We kind of give them a little time to transition to 3 o'clock classes. So if you have to drop, this is the time that you are welcome to do that. And we appreciate Maria and Chris being here. However, if you have a few minutes and want to stay, we can go right up until the 3 o'clock. Okay. Thank you, Emma and Amy. I hope that this was what you needed to understand more about Bay State in this area. Yeah, so they have to go off to 3 o'clock. Well, sorry for going right to the hour like that.
Oh, no worries. Sorry, I lost track of time myself.
No, that was
Yeah,
good.
no, thank you. And I think that, the stumble of not getting in, and we've had this little thing, it made us put me off, but I think it pulled together nicely and we were able to still give them a great vision of what Bay State has to offer and what it does. And typically we like to be able to hear what we can't see on the website, around culture, et cetera. So we hope to see you. I don't know if it's job fair or back again. Will you be a part of our job fair? Very good.
They will.
They'll come with those maybe kind of questions at that time. But it was wonderful to get both of you, both areas able to represent your organization the way you did today.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invite. We look forward to the graduate level career fair. We did attend the bachelor's level fair last month, I think it was, or the month before that. We had a great time. So we're looking forward to any upcoming events to connect with more MSW students.
Great. Are you getting our students for internships at this point?
We do get the inquiries. However, it's tough to supervise so many interns throughout the year. I know Maria, she has one already on top of her growing caseload of supervising staff, MSW staff here. So we are in current discussions with leadership on how we can support more MSW interns throughout the agency. So we're looking forward to having a centralized sort of internship program roll out for the next year. But yes, we do get the inquiries all the time, and it always breaks my heart that I can't say yes to every student at this time.
No, that's great, but this is like, at least we have you in through the career door, and we just always look for opportunity for what else, and so thank you for being able to come again. And Stephanie, the partner extraordinaire in being able to get all of this set up and everyone in and coordinated this way. It's been wonderful. So thank you, Stephanie, as well.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'm just like loving learning about everything social work. It's just like so amazing. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria. You're a great example. You're not one of our
Sorry, no.
we got plenty of you. We got plenty of you in-house that are faculty, et cetera, but it's wonderful to see someone who has progressed through and in the role, so that you're in, and that's what it's all about, is trying to get the students exposed. So we really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Come back again.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.